You leave Kalma and ride due east along a dusty track. Mile after mile of featureless grassland passes by on either side until late in the afternoon you enter a range of gentle wooded hills. You have not gone very far before you discover a stream of sparkling water that is teeming with trout. Feeling tired and hungry, you decide to rest here and try your luck at catching some fresh fish for your supper.
Fish! Finally a decent meal.
Within half an hour, you have collected 6 fine speckled specimens of Palmyrean trout, more than enough to sate your ravenous appetite. You're about to construct a small campfire in which to cook them when suddenly you hear the sound of a wagon and horses approaching along the hill tracks from the east. Rather than run the risk of being confronted by bandits, you take cover behind a bush and wait for the wagon to appear. Through the foliage, you see 6 well-armed horsemen riding 2 abreast. They are followed by a carriage behind which there are another 2 horsemen guarding the rear. The coach is quite small, suitable for no more than 2 passengers at most, and its lightweight black wood looks dull. It is covered with the dust of a long journey. It has curtained windows and a crest adorns its doors. As we draw closer, you see one of the leading horsemen raise his hand to bring the column to a halt. Your heart sinks when you realize that he has seen your horse. Rather than take the risk of losing your mount, you call out to the horseman, commanding him to continue his way. "Show yourself," he shouts in reply and draws a saber. "Unless you be a brigand, you have no need to fear us." You remain hidden for a few moments longer, using your kind skills to determine their purpose. When you can detect no aura of evil about them, you rise from behind the bush so that you can be seen. A pale hand parts the carriage curtains and you glimpse the face of a handsome young woman with jet black hair.
Wow, we're just on running into girls all over the place now.
Lone Wolf is mystified. It's like suddenly everyone's growing boobs lately.
Also, handsome girl. I thought it would be beautiful or gorgeous or something more associated with that, but yeah, it may just be me.
Yeah, handsome is typically a male. The description named it.
Maybe she has a very boyish look then.
Perhaps.
Judging by the finery of her dress and the elegance of her
I don't
demeanor.
know. I mean, what's a good example? I consider, characters like Wonder Woman, Xena Warrior Princess to be handsome, but they're still women.
I don't know. Judging by the finery of her dress and the elegance of her demeanor, you assess her to be of noble birth. "You, sir," she calls with a refined Palmyrean accent. I know you. Please, won't you approach my coach so that I can be sure?" "Do you wish to go closer?"
Sounds a little suspicious, but yeah. Let's step forward.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, why not?
Intrigued by the young woman's high-bred charms, you step away from the bushes and approach her carriage door. "Why, yes," she says excitedly. "You are the Northland warrior they call Lone Wolf, are you not? I was in attendance at the Elector's court the day he awarded you the Star of Palmyrean for your victory over the Xena Druids of Rule. I am honored to meet with you in person, brave sir." The carriage door swings open and the beautiful young woman steps gracefully out onto the stony trail. "May I be so bold as to introduce myself," she says, pausing to adjust her broad-brimmed hat, which is trimmed with black curvail fur, as silky smooth as her flowing hair. "I am the Baroness Corien of the Lucia province." She offers you her delicate hand and you kiss it in deference to her noble rank. Out of the corner of your eye, you notice the leading horseman dismounted come to stand protectively by her side. Oh, there's a picture of her.
Oh,
Yeah, she looks pretty enough, but those are some great puffs on her outfit, I have to say.
yeah, but that's to show off how rich she is, by having all sorts of unnecessary puffiness on her clothes.
Huh. Oh well, but still, hello.
But she
good
looks
miss.
pretty.
Yeah, but
And she seems friendly enough.
yeah, but the question is what exactly she's doing out here.
Well, maybe we'll learn. "Oh, and this is my personal guard, Dorst." You give the gruff-looking fellow a slight bow, and he nods his head in response, albeit begrudgingly. "We are returning from a visit to my cousin's estate. We were hoping to reach Kalmar by sunset, but we were delayed by bandits," she says, almost apologetically. "We made them pay dearly for wasting our time, though," adds Dorst, with quiet menace. "It appears we shall now have to encamp here in the hills this night," says the Baroness. "Perhaps you would care to join us, my lord. I would feel so much safer if you did." Despite Dorst's cutting glances, you agree to the Baroness' proposal. Then you produce the 6 trout that you caught earlier and offer them to her as a gift. "Why, thank you," she says with a smile. "They look delicious."
Yay! I got that fish as a present.
You help the Baroness and Turek to set up camp beside the stream with Dorst, who considers himself something of a master cook, prepares the trout you caught earlier. To your surprise, the meal turns out to be excellent. Restore 3 endurance points.
Yay.
Good. We had a brilliant meal and we recovered some health from it. But seriously, if I were to compare those two to animals, I would say the lady sounds like, for some reason, a fox, and this guy sounds like a bear.
During supper, you ask the Baroness what news she has heard of events in the east. She tells you that there is a war between the principalities of the Stormlands, although this is such a common condition that it can hardly be considered news anymore. Of distance,
Conflict over small things.
Of distant Summerlund she has heard nothing. After supper, she excuses herself and retires to her carriage. Dorst posts 2 men to guard her coach, and then he invites you to play cards with himself and the remaining 5 men. Do you accept his offer?
Sure.
Well, sure.
Dorst spreads out an oilskin blanket and you all gather around, seating yourself cross-legged on the ground. He then deals 5 cards to each man and opens with betting with a stake of 5 loon. The game is Taluka, common in the inns of Palmyria and especially popular among professional gamblers. With your kind builders, it's easy for you to know every card that is being played, and so rather than risk being called a cheat, you simply go through the motions of playing the game, maintaining exactly the same amount of money you begin with.
So there's no need to withdraw or add more loon.
Nope. After half an hour or so, you suddenly realize that Dorst is cheating. Do you wish to expose his cheating or quit the game?
Well, we could always give the noble lady a good show by accusing him of cheating and then watching the hilarity. Or we can just say no. But yeah, I say we expose him. You need to...
Let's not risk any trouble.
Yeah.
You agree with Warlord?
I mean, he didn't seem overly keen about us already, so let's not make the situation worse. He's not our enemy.
And you agreed with Warlord giving here?
Yeah, he's not an enemy, and cheating a card is really not the worst you can do.
You fold your hand of cards, pick up your money, and make an excuse that you are tired after your long day's ride. Dorst and his men bid you good night, and as he and his men continue with the game, you go and check to see that your horse is comfortable for the night. You're busy gathering some grasses for his feet when suddenly a shriek echoes through the hills. It is the unmistakable cry of a crone. Do you wish to use Kai Scream?
Yeah.
Yes.
Instinctively, you crouch down and take cover amongst the nearby foliage. You also call upon your Kai camouflage and psychic skills to help mask your presence from the creature, which is circling high above the trees. For several minutes, you stare at the loathsome creature, not daring to move a muscle. Then you see it fly away and you breathe a sigh of relief. A chill night wind whistles through the trees and you shiver. But it is not the cold that is chilling your blood, it is the sudden fear that you may never see your homeland again. Dorst doubles the guard in case the crones should decide to return during the night. Then he and the others unpack their sleeping furs and settle down to a night's rest beside the warmth of the campfire embers. For an hour, you lie awake, staring uneasily at the sky, until fatigue overtakes you and you slip into a deep sleep. After, being awake for 3 days straight.
Yeah, that can happen.
You are woken at dawn by one of Dorst's men, who immediately hands you a steaming mug of huas, a delicious Palmyrian beverage. You notice that others are in various states of waking, and as you sip your reviving drink, you watch Dorst shaving at the stream. After a while, the Baroness emerges from her carriage. She appears as fresh as a spring flower, and together you breakfast before the can you really breakfast?
I think it would be more like breaking bread, but
Yeah.
I never heard it used like that.
I suppose breakfast is the 2 words break and feast smashed together. So
Yeah, okay, I guess it just seemed weird. But
yeah, I know, but doesn't that sort of sound logical that breakfast is the 2 words break and feast sort of smashed together?
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound quite logical. It's just weird because I never really seen it used like that, so I tripped over it when it suddenly appeared. Together you breakfast before the camp is struck and you go your separate ways. If you ever visit Lucia province, she says, leaning from the open window of her carriage, be sure to visit my estate in Gardovo. I would be honored, my lady, you reply and wave to her until at last her carriage and riders disappear into the hills. The weather is warmer than of late, and you make good progress despite the poor condition of the road. An hour past midday, as you are crossing a treeless valley, you happen upon a young man praying at a wayside shrine. He is dressed in a guildsman's tunic and cloak, and he appears to be unarmed. Do you wish to stop and question the young man, or to just ignore him and continue on your way?
I think we might want to talk to him. For well, no other reason than to ask what he's praying for.
Sure.
The young man gets up off his knees and greets you with a friendly smile. He is unusually talkative for a guildsman, and you soon learn that his name is Frello, and that he is a journeyman from the Silversmiths Guild of Vanamore. He has stopped here to offer up a prayer to Ishir to protect him from bad strangers on the trail. It appears that he was robbed yesterday by some Eldonorans on the road out of Vanamore. He offers to share half of a loaf of bread with you, but you decline his generosity, thank him nonetheless. You sense that it is all the food he has. Mindful of wasting time, you bid him good luck and then continue your journey east. Beyond the valley lies an expanse of coarse and thorny vegetation, which is alive with wild game. You stop to catch yourself an evening meal and then make camp beneath an old twisted oak. Restore 3 endurance points. The night passes uneventfully, and at first light you resume your ride east. Shortly before midday, you arrive at the ruins of an ancient church, where a signpost pointing to the east says, Vanamore, 42 miles. You allow yourself a smile. With luck, you could be inside the city walls by nightfall. Later in the day, you see a dust cloud approaching along the road. You magnify your vision and see a dozen armed horsemen clad in ragged uniforms of green and black. A sense of unease perverts your mind. These are the calls most often worn by Eldonoran soldiers. Trusting your kind instincts, you steer your horse off the trail and take cover among the trees of a nearby copse. Roll the die, Gibbonier.
4.
As the riders approach, your initial suspicions are confirmed. These are unquestionably Eldonoran brigands. Their saddle cloths bear the emblem, and their steeds are laden with sacks and pouches that bulge with ill-gotten gains. You decide to remain hidden until they have passed by, but as they draw level with the copse, your horse suddenly shrieks and rises up in its hind legs. With shock's dismay, you see that a harmless grass snake has coiled itself around your horse's foreleg.
Well, stupid horse.
Well, in its defense, I'd like to point out that it didn't know that the snake was harmless.
Yeah, and I guess if you just saw a snake crawl up your leg, you would be pretty...
Yeah, I'd freak the fuck out too!
Yeah.
Same here, Walter, same here. I have to admit.
Though standing still is the best way to not get bitten in that case, but again, that's not something a horse knows.
Seriously, stood I in such a situation and he told me to stand still, I think I would sort of utter the words, "Are you fucking mental?"
Well, yeah, but if you suddenly start shaking around, you might scare the snake, and then it will bite to defend itself. If it just thinks you're a tree stump or something, well, then it can probably be coaxed off.
I think if I had a large amount of self-control, I would just be sort of... I wouldn't shake, I wouldn't move, I would just be sort of like, okay, not moving. Is it okay if I pee my pants?
Exactly. The cry of your frightened horse betrays your hiding place. The Eldonorans wheel away from the road and come charging towards the copse, their swords drawn in eager anticipation of yet another easy kill. Do you wish to unsheath your weapon and get ready to kill them, or would you rather retreat into the copse and attempt to evade these brigands?
Well, we have the risk of them either informing someone who might well have beaten the entire force, so I just say, leave no one alive.
Yeah, fight or flight, I vote fight.
You always vote fight. Anywho, also to ensure that they don't attack more villages. They aren't exactly nice to people.
True.
Upon the bellowed command of the leader, the onrushing horsemen split into 2 groups. One group continues its task to watch you, while the other slows to a halt to await the outcome. You sense that they're used to picking off lone travelers in this fashion. No sense expending the energy of 12 men when the job can be accomplished by 6. But this time, they have underestimated the enemy, and it is a mistake you intend them to pay dearly for. Do you wish to use your bow?
Yes!
Well, it is a smart tactic if you're just going after someone easy, but yeah.
The problem is, once your target isn't easy.
Exactly.